Today, we're going to break down a really unique and honestly a pretty wild leadership philosophy. It's called the Incompetence Doctrine, and it's all about what happens when one person's gut instinct goes completely unchecked by reality. Yeah, it gets messy, so let's dive in. So, our story kicks off in the Oval Office. President Orangnocloths is just raving about his latest pick, Secretary of Defense Mumblesworth. But as Chief of Staff, Miranda Steelspine, she sees things a little differently. She doesn't mince words, she just comes right out and says it. It's been a disaster. And right there, that's the whole doctrine in a nutshell. The president hears the word disaster, and his brain somehow translates that into success. You see, for him, chaos isn't a problem. It's the whole point. It's proof that his guy is shaking things up, working just like he was supposed to. So really, what we're looking at here is a story of cause and effect. We're going to explore this seriously flawed philosophy, and then we'll get into the very real, very chaotic consequences it had on, things like national security and international relations. Okay, so let's really nail down this core philosophy. This entire administration wasn't built on things like experience or expertise or facts. Nope. It was built on the president's personal gut instincts, which basically valued loyalty and causing a commotion above everything else. And this slide, it just lays it all out, doesn't it? On the left, you've got Mumblesworth's actual record, just one catastrophic blunder after another. But on the right, that's how the president spins it. Leaking nuclear codes? Oh, that's just disrupting the status quo. Proposing a Pentagon moat with alligators? That's innovation. It's a completely different reality. All right, this brings us to our first case study. With this gut instinct philosophy in full swing, the president needs a new Secretary of State. And now we get to see his, let's call it unique, hiring process in action. So where do you think the president finds the nation's next top diplomat? The State Department? A prestigious university? Nah, of course not. He finds him on a podcast hosted by a guy who interviews conspiracy theorists between sets at the gym. And meet the candidate, Dr. Thaddeus, Edge Truth Craterfield. It seems his main qualification for the job is a viral video where he exposes the whole globe Earth conspiracy. You can't make this stuff up. Okay, just let's take a second to really absorb his worldview, shall we? It's not just the flat Earth thing. He also believes Antarctica is a giant ice wall patrolled by guards riding penguins. The moon? A hologram. Finland? Doesn't exist. And apparently, China is trying to drill through to the other side of the disk. And this guy was the top pick for Secretary of State. So during his job interview in the Oval Office, Craterfield's true colors start to, slip out. They ask him about foreign policy, and he launches into this glowing speech about Russia, calling them the guardians of the Eastern Edge and a noble land of truth seekers. Well, naturally, the Chief of Staff immediately calls him on that. And his attempt to backtrack is, let's just say, not very smooth. He claims he said they were global, which, makes zero sense coming from a guy who thinks the globe is a conspiracy. They keep pressing him, and then, boom, he just cracks and confesses, out loud. He admits that Russia funds his entire operation. His YouTube channel, his research institute, and even a secret communication device they hid inside one of his teeth. He actually tries to pass all of this off, the money, the institute, the tooth phone, as just, standard scientific patronage. But the cat's out of the bag. So a crisis is averted here, but not because of good judgment. It was just because the candidate's corruption was so incredibly obvious that even they couldn't ignore it. So what happens when one of these incompetent appointees is already in the job? Well, our second case study shows us exactly that. This is the story of Secretary Mumblesworth and the time he single-handedly created an international crisis. Okay, so let's set the scene. We're in Poland during a massive military exercise called Thunder Shield. And when I say massive, I mean it. We're talking 30,000 troops from all across the NATO alliance. The stakes here are incredibly high. And here's how one tiny preventable mistake spirals into absolute chaos. Mumblesworth's plane, one of the most important aircraft in the U.S. military, runs low on fuel. It has to make an emergency landing, right in the middle of the war games. This one move sets off a crazy domino effect. The British think something's wrong and try to secure the plane.
The Germans see the British tanks moving and think it's a real threat. Then the French scramble their jets. It nearly turns into a massive friendly fire incident between allies.
And what is the Secretary of Defense doing while his allies are on the verge of fighting each other? He casually strolls off the plane and delivers this bizarre, totally unhelpful greeting to a bunch of very confused Polish soldiers. Friend person. His awareness of how serious this all is, absolutely zero. While NATO forces are scrambling, teetering on the edge of disaster, Mumblesworth is busy posting selfies on social media. #TankLife. So, of course, he gets hauled before Congress to explain himself. And the disconnect is just staggering. On one side, you have Congress trying to figure out how a major international incident happened. And on the other, you have Mumblesworth comparing the whole thing to running out of gas on the way to the dentist or forgetting to buy milk for his cereal. So what was the lasting impact of this whole mess? A brand new Pentagon regulation. The official name is something boring, but unofficially, everyone calls it the Mumblesworth Rule. It's basically a new protocol to idiot-proof government flights by making sure there's always way more fuel than necessary on board. So this brings us to the big question, right? To our conclusion. After all of this, after nearly hiring a foreign agent, after causing a self-inflicted crisis within NATO, did the administration finally learn anything? I mean, after everything we've just walked through, you'd think there would have to be some kind of change in philosophy. Maybe a new focus on, I don't know, competence and experience, right? Nope, not a chance. The president's response is just to double down on the whole thing. The near disasters are written off as nothing. His gut, he insists, is still perfect. The core doctrine remains completely untouched. And this slide just says it all. The lesson was not learned. The very next candidate they start considering for the job is a person who genuinely believes Bigfoot deserves a seat on the UN Security Council. Which really just leaves us all with one final, unsettling thought. If this is the doctrine, what could possibly come next?